going to be like a little bit of karma because I've had to interview a lot of people lately and I've made them live code. So to just discharge some of that guilt that I've been feeling, going to live code today. But at first, a little backstory. Let's live code a chatbot. What could go wrong? Or the actual title of the talk, replacing your friends with robots when they abandon you. Some backstory. Once upon a time at Envoy, where I work as engineering manager, we had a nice group of engineers who would help field questions from customer support. Myself, Brian Coe, Sean Moe, and Jay Moe. But then, Brian's like, BRB, I'm going to Asia for 6 months. I'm not going to have any internet, so he's gone. And Sean's like, yeah, I'm going to have a baby. And Jay Moe's also like, well, also having a baby. So at this point, it's just me. Me, QA lead. And so people will message me all the time asking similar and repetitive questions, and I'm the only one fielding them. So our solution to that, Brian Cobot, Sean Mobot, Jay Mobot. So a little context around how we're going to make these amazing chatbots today. There is a framework called Lita. It's really cool because it has a few different patterns, one of which is adapters and the other which is plugins. Adapters is cool because even though we might think of like a Slack bot, the mechanism's really the same if you have a chat bot anywhere, like Discord, IRC, Slack, SMS. And so you can abstract that whole vein of like connecting to a thing and being a bot into an adapter, which we're going to configure with Slack today. But you could just as easily make like Telegram bot to do this or whatever. Telegram like as a service, not like an actual, I mean, maybe you could do it with a Telegram. There's also like tons of built-in plugins. If you've ever used Ubot, there's basically the same type of things in Ruby for this. So let's do it. And I have some cheat notes if things start to go terribly wrong, but I want to try to make this like from scratch. And no, let's open the thing. So the outcomes that I'm expecting out of this is like, first we're going to boot a bot. We're going to get the bot to respond to a specific phrase. We're going to get the bot to respond when mentioned directly. We're going to be able to like @Brian Cobot from our command line. We're going to then install Slack and see what that process is like to get it hooked up to Slack with the skills that we made. And then I'll show you some external skills where we can just like install, like, for example, we could do like PagerDuty or, I mean, we're going to do silly ones, but there's like legitimate business cases. I showed my wife this and she's like, is this what you do all day? This doesn't look like it's valuable to anybody, but it doesn't matter. So we'll minimize that and let's get started. So Lita is a gem, and so you just do like gem install Lita, which we're not going to do, but yeah. No, just look harder. Okay. This is great. So if we do help, we'll see a few things. We can make an adapter, extension, handler, help, Lita new with a name, which will generate a new Lita project, and some other things. So let's do Lita new. We'll do JMobot since he's back there. JMobot. Okay, so that's great. We only see just a few files. Let's take a look at what we've got. Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's going to get annoying. Let me turn that off. It's my push to talk. Okay, so we have two pretty basic files. We have this config file where we see robot name, we see our current adapter is shell, and then we have a gem file. And here it kind of hints at like we can install some adapters, which this is probably where we'll install Slack. Then we have like, as we see Lita Google Images, Lita Karma, like there's all kinds of skills and stuff that we could install. And The Lita website, which we'll be looking at, has amazing documentation on this and a list of like all of the possible things you could want. Let's do docs, user guide, plugin authoring guide. So the plugin authoring guide is really good, and we'll look at that in a second. So what does this get us? If we do Lita, or bundle exec Lita, which would be more responsible, but it'd be wild. We see we get Lita info, Lita help. So not a lot, but we've booted our bot. So I'm going to go ahead and cross that off our to-do list. Okay, so next, we want our bot to respond to a specific phrase it might hear. And so in like Lita jargon, that would be a handler. It's similar to like in Alexa, you might have a skill. That's how I like to think of them. So if we do Lita help, we see we can do Lita Adapter with a name, generates a new Lita Adapter. So like, let's do Lita Adapter, Heroku is down. It'll ask you some default questions, great. And so for this, maybe when we'll do the at mention first, but like maybe when we at JMobot, we want them to say like, have you tried restarting the dynos? That's going to be, so like JMobot, Heroku's down, and we'll just be like, have you tried restarting the dynos? It's going to be his response, which is what he would have done anyways. So let's look. This is actually interesting because we have this root. Just open Explorer real quick. This is amazingly hard to see, but I'll describe it. So we have a root project that's just a gem file, and then we have each skill, which is a completely separate project, which is a really cool pattern because we could do something like get submodules, and this also allows us to deploy specific skills to Ruby gems. And so maybe if we want to reuse these skills later at another bot, like we just publish these gems like Lita Heroku's down independently, and then in our root bot or in anybody's root bot, they could install these handlers we're making. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna open up just a little side panel here, which doesn't matter, but we'll use it to run the bot as we make changes. So gonna go to JMobot, gonna go to Lita-Heroku's down, do the same thing over here. Okay, great. And if we look in our file here, we will see a few things. One of the reasons why I really like Lita as opposed to Ubot, which I've used both, Ubot turns into a kitchen sink for me where I have like sprawling 1,000-line files of skills. But Lita is like pretty modular, and so it has some specs built in, which we'll use. We'll actually either drive our tests or confirm our implementation with them, depending on how we feel in a second. And then the adapter itself, which let's actually look at the docs for how we can use this. So plugin authoring guide. The thing that we need to do is we need to figure out how to mention our bot and have it respond. And that is going to be called routes. And so here we have this example of we have a regular route with a regular expression, and then it maps to a command. Okay, cool. So let's try that. We're just going to have an extremely naive implementation first. So let's just say down. And so if something is down, we're gonna have it say like, have you tried restarting it? Try restarting. And this symbol is going to map to a function that we're going to make. Try restarting. And just, we could find this out the painful way, but what's going to happen is Lita's going to pass us a response. So it's going to match something and then pass us what it matched as part of this response object, which we'll use to actually reply. And so if we just kind of browse around. And let's look at somebody having used a response. Response.body, I think it's like .replies. Response.reply. And well, actually, let's throw a binding.pry in here just so we can play around with it and act like we didn't know. Require pry, I think that's necessary. We're going to do something like, put this in here for later. Okay, so let's try to run it. Who knows what we'll get? Great. Oh yeah, so turns out gem spec is really specific because we have all these to-dos here, and unlike NPM, Ruby Gems doesn't like just random stuff published, I guess, but this will be one of those random things we publish anyways. Something like that. Great. There's probably some much better way to fix this, but we see that I have a different bundler installed, the joys of live coding. Let's bundle, Lita. Okay, what's going on? Fatal, not a Git repository. Great. Let's go back. Make it a Git. Lita. We'll go back into our specific handler. Bundle again. Try to boot it again. Undefined method or route. Okay. So I've accidentally made a Lita Adapter, which is not what we want. We want a Lita handler. So we are going to go out. Going to remove the thing we made. Going to commit this. Adapter. We're going to make Lita new handler. Let's actually start with something simpler. We'll do Pong. Or ping. When we say ping, it will say Pong. Lita handler ping. We don't care about Travis CI. We don't care about code coverage because we're reckless in live coding. Okay, so we have our skill, Lita ping. Very similar, except we see handlers. This is better. We see route, ping, Pong. And so our ideal outcome here is when we say ping, we just want it to say Pong. Response, response dot reply, Pong. Okay, we're going to go fix the gem file again. Y'all can mark me a few points off on my Yelp review for messing the first one up, having to redo this. Sure, whatever. Bundle, Lita Pong, Lita ping, bundle. Oh my gosh. So realistic. It's like a documentary. So 2.0.1, save it, bundle. Looks good, Lita. Got it. Let's see. Thank you. Don't clap yet. Let's ping first. It works. That's great. So now, since we have something working, we're obviously going to commit. Git commit, just in case, reset here. Okay, so the next thing, there's got to be some edge cases. I'm usually not a fan of like controller or routing based tests, but since we're dealing with regular expressions, the first sanity test I like to set up just to know that I'm. Thank you, JMobot. Turns out I'm not a bandit after all. It's fine. That part's fine. Okay, so we have this regular expression here. I'm very suspicious. If we type capital PING, it's probably not going to map. The thing, like, to help just give me a good feedback cycle, I want to set up a few like phrases that we want to map to this function and just cover those in tests so we know that we're at least connecting the dots between what we say and calling this function. So in our specs, if we take a look, so ping spec, great, context, when we pinging. What I want to do is something like, let's actually just look at the docs, I can't remember. So back to the docs, testing route. So testing routes. Again, like, yes, there's probably merits to this, and we can get in and do like an acceptance-based test in a second where we actually test the output of the function. But I think we're just gonna like lock down some cases that we wanna make sure this is working. So we have it is expected to route to some message to call some callback. Great. So I think let's start by seeing what we think pass. So we expect ping to route to Pong. Does that seem reasonable? We'll do rspec, spec. Cool, so we have a passing test. Just for sanity, no, we don't need, for insanity, let's go back and test our previous theory that trying to do a capital PING would actually fail. Yep. And we can go fix that in our lib file, ping.rb. It's not the right file. Okay, so you're about to experience the height of my regular expression knowledge. I'll have to go back and watch some talks from Aaron for this, but I'm pretty sure if we stick an I here, it will ignore the case. Let's test it out. Nice. And so if you were like making a real bot, like maybe you do or do not want other things to happen, like help, maybe you don't want like helping to match here. Doesn't matter, I spelled it wrong, but ping's in there. And so like you could go in and set these up and kind of just use that to lock down your, because I would expect this not to match, right? To not route. Yep, so no, different error. To route. It's like doesn't. Let's look at our test handlers. No, we want to test routes. Is expected to route. Does anybody see like a not to route? Can we put like a not in front? Who here's an rspec whiz? To not maybe? Yep, okay, there we go. Great, Ruby, you just make it up. Cool. So this actually crosses off our second thing. We could do more, but let's just keep moving. How are we doing on time? Okay, great. So the next thing, let's go back to the previous boss battle and get our Heroku thing to work. Commit, we can ping. Okay, so any questions, comments, concerns so far? Good to keep moving? Okay, we're going to keep moving. Okay, so we have Lita ping. Let's do Lita handler. Heroku is down. No tests, no code coverage. Unfortunately, we're going to have to go into our gem spec for the third time. Oops. Okay. Bundler. Does anybody remember 2.0.1? The paper cuts of programming. Okay, so now we want it to just generally listen to just open channel. No, we want it to do an at. So like, if I go in here and I say Heroku is down, just like John would do in reality, he will ignore it because he's not at mentioned. But if we do like Lita, Heroku is down, then we expect that John would prompt us to restart Heroku. So gonna go into lib and just act like we had written a bunch of tests. If we start to troll ourselves in a second, we will go write the tests. Is down. Ignore case, it's fine. Def. Heroku is down. Response. And response dot reply. Have you tried restarting the dynos? Hyper accurate response from John. Let's just see how far this gets us. Down, nothing. This is where we will go write the test. Bundle, I will try that. Cool, so this is exactly what I would do IRL, context. Do what? Absolutely you do. Let's try that. That could get us out of several tests. Sandbox, desktop, sandbox, jmobot, cd, Lita, Heroku is down, Lita down. Thank you, JMO. Thought you had abandoned me. Okay, so in an ideal world, we would write those, but what we really want over here is to do the Lita, Heroku is down, which it works, but we want it to ignore if we just have the word down in there. Okay, so in Lita speak, this is called a command. So if we go to maybe command, nope, handlers, command. So we see here, there's an option. If set to true, it will only trigger when directed at the robot. And like any good programmer, we'll blindly copy and paste and then test instead of read more. Close those tests. We obviously don't need them, too good for that. Command true, cool. So down, ignores, Lita, Heroku is down, tried restarting the dynos. All right, that's good enough for now. And again, this is where we should go write route tests with like the bot name and make sure that it's not calling if we don't have the bot, but there's a deadline, so we obviously have to ignore all of that. Just kidding, please don't do that. See what's next. Okay, we're moving now. So we want, I said Brian Cobot here, but we're doing JMobot, 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 JMobot. Okay, so next, let's go back to our thing. So we made these two skills, but as we mentioned earlier, we have this like root project, and then we have folders for all the skills we're making. And as I told myself earlier, I was running Lita in the root, and we couldn't access the other skills. So that's going to be something I'm going to throw out there to the audience now. We'll have to address that very shortly. First things first, let's go in here, go to the config, and change the name, because that's pretty easy. JMobot. Lita down, oh wait, that doesn't help us. Lita info, because that's one of the built-in commands. Nothing, JMobot info. Cool, so we've scoped it to our, to the name we want. Now we're gonna go into this gem file and Lita Heroku is down. And this is where I mentioned if we had it on Ruby gems, this would just like be like magic. This would work. But since we need to use a path, I think we can do path Lita. Let's just assume it's going to work. Lita ping. Oh, got a bundle. Lita, JMobot, get down. Cool, so now we have the skills that we made earlier, ping. This is not very interesting though, because there's not many people on your command line. Well, I mean, I hope there's not. I guess if you're doing tmux, but that's kind of a big exception. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna set up our first adapter. So Lita Slack, and y'all are probably about to see lots of configuration and keys. I promise I'll roll them later, but I'd rather just show you what this is actually like than do like the cooking show, take it out of the oven. So let's go in, we're gonna install Lita Slack, bundle. While it's bundling, let's grab the README. So my Slack, so I have a burner Slack set up called Valhalla's Gate, which I will go open. Great, opening in the wrong. Need to sign in to see this page. Damn it, dang it, I knew this would happen. I thought we could. Am I signed in on Firefox? Sure, okay, cool. Switching to Firefox. You can see I only have 3 emojis in here, which describe my 3 emotions. So Lita Slack. Okay, so about to see some magic. My Slack /service/new/Lita. Okay, cool. So we're going to set up JMobot. Oops. Add Lita integration. And it gives us this nice copy-paste thing that we're going to throw into our config with our token and our adapter. So, oops. Vim. So we're going to come down, comment out the shell, growth tabs, fixed it. The other thing that is definitely worth pausing for is putting our sweet graphics in here. Okay, so we're going to save the integration. And now we're going to boot Lita. We see info connected to Slack. So let's go and see if we can invite JMobot. So JMobot, Heroku is down. There it is. We have automated 90% of John's job at this point. So the other thing we can do is install external skills. So for example, Sean Mobot's also in here. And if we tell him, turns out he's crashed. We'll go restart him. That was anticlimactic. Oh, whatever, we can only have one installed. Okay, problem for another day. I could deploy that to Heroku and we could have both in here, but let's just install them on, I said there's tons of useful skills, so let's search Lita. I have to craft this Google very carefully. GitHub, Lita, butts. This is the dangers of live coding. Okay, cool. We see this as a skill we want to install onto JMO. We're going to kill the process real quick. Gem file, and this is where we get into like some magic because we install, but we boot it back up. And we'll take JMO, but he'll do butts. He'll do two butts. Two really long butts. So as you see, we're just like soaking up so much useful leverage from the internet right now. These core business things. Which again, there's another very real one. We'll do one more for fun. Lita PugBomb, if any of y'all are familiar with PugBomb from Ubot. But even though these are dumb, you might imagine Lita PagerDuty, Lita Heroku, you can actually do some useful things at work if you so choose. So PugBomb, bundle, Lita, JMO. So like JMobot posts an insensitive meme and he needs to cover it up. Now we can do PugBomb. Boom, tons of pugs. So what else can we check off the list? So we got them booted from CLI. We got hooked up to Slack. We made sure the existing skills worked at Slack. And we installed some extremely useful bonus skill along with PugBomb. So I would say that concludes this live coding session. Thank you so much for watching me attempt to make chatbots in front of y'all. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Have you ever made anything useful using a chatbot?
I like that you added on with a chatbot. Yes. So this was actually motivated by a command called Brian Cobot WTF, which grabbed Heroku metrics, and we used Vibrato for logging. So if we experience latency, a lot of times, like we use something called skim, and so it's like other people's directories sync with us and enqueue hundreds of thousands of jobs just sporadically as they feel like it. And so you might expect like a spike in latency, you get the alert and you can do Brian Cobot WTF, and then it would show like, you can use the Vibrato API to post like screenshots of your current metrics and stuff. Cool. God, I'm so scared.
Yes. First of all, how dare you? Second of all, how did you find, I just have to know how you found the butts thing.
No comment.
I got a quick question.
Did you not think I was brave for finding it in front of everybody, though?
So I remember years ago, it's probably 4 or 5 years ago, I built a little mini chatbot at work using Hubot. I don't really know the status of Hubot. I have not messed with it in a long time, but have you noticed certain benefits that you would use Lita over Hubot or just anything like that?
So the biggest thing that I really like Lita is how modular it is in terms of adapters and handlers. And so you've got this great testing just out of the box, even though we didn't do much of it, and I might not do much of it, but it's there if we need it, which is useful if you're doing production things. Again, I think from the last time I used Ubot, it was like lots of less convention around that. And then also the other thing, it's very similar, like JavaScript and Ruby both have a ton of community support. And so you can imagine anything that there's a package out there to do, you basically drop in, do a new handler, you set up your route, and then any package that might exist, you can make a handler really easily in a like nice, organized, deployable way. So they're very similar. I think just it's more like organizational preference, but I think they're both like stable and good. The other thing I really like, which I'm not so sure on Ubot, but if you saw, like Lita has like Telegram and IRC and Discord. Like Discord's really interesting, and we actually use Lita for some of our like production apps at work. And so for like our Slack bot that you can install with Envoy, it's actually built in Lita, which is kind of cool. But it's just like you can skin it, and people don't even realize it's Lita. So even though we have like the crab, like you can set this up to install as like a proper app. So. Okay. Anything else? All right.